You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Give you a little click in. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here it goes.
I hope your dreams don't feel small. When the wind begins to rise, open your mouth and stand tall.
It's not a music video. It's not sad music playing over the thing. Sometimes the characters are singing in the car. Sometimes it's coming from the radio.
Were you watching over me? Was I watching over you?
And that's what you hear. It's like kids out there playing, and you know, you get that sound processing of it's a 1980s game, and that's what it sounds like. Which is a whole different thing than just listening to it like the stereo mix.
Why don't we do like a little one word to turn it down?
Okay.
A little more frustration.
Okay. Dad! Dad!
Where you going to? It's not
Totally different than what I saw before. Is that how it will look, you reckon? Or
Yeah.
okay, wow.
Where's Dad? Is that me, 55?
Yeah.
It's
Whoa,
pretty sexy.
got longer legs than I thought. I don't know if I get my voice up.
What I ended up doing is I ended up choosing kind of one framework of a song, but the lyrics are going to change.
I tied them both together because it was always windy here.
Putting it all together and trying to kind of make it all feel cool based on voice quality.
There's no wrong way.
Beautiful. You're done. There you go. That's great.
Morning, everybody. Hi, this is Mike Balzer. And that was the making of. And appears I've got some technical issue. So hang on just a moment. So give me a moment to straighten this out, and I'll be right back with you. All right, let's see what happens now. Okay, let's see how this works out. So it appears I was feeding back my signal into my audio, and I was getting a delay, which can play havoc on one's mind. All right, so let's kind of move right into it. As mentioned, that was a Google Spotlight story about the Oscar-nominated short animation, and I'll go ahead and go to it right now. So if you're not already familiar with it, this was a little VR, and the VR's name was Pearl. And obviously I had an opportunity to look at it when it first came out, as probably many of you did. It was a very immersive, at least to me, experience. But they have obviously been nominated for an Oscar, so we'll see what happens with it. I thought it was a very interesting little video, personally. So on that note, let's kind of go into our main theme today, which is alternative 3D facts. And the big news, and you know, I have to give credit to Benedict out at 3dyears.org for kind of breaking this news, but he did a good job of collecting information about certain things that are going on with the particular video. And or this particular 3D printer. And as you can see here, the funding for it has been suspended by Kickstarter. And the main reason for it is that there was a lot of suspicions that the printer, and I'll go ahead and play this little video here, wasn't actually creating the particular 3D objects that they depicted in their Kickstarter video. In fact, let's kind of jump to that right now. So this is the Kickstarter. We've actually covered it on the show a number of times before, and I actually thought it was very impressive. This comes out of Germany, and they have exceeded 363 euros, well past their 200,000 goal. However, as indicated, it has been suspended. As you remember, it had a very cool interface, but it was an SLA type printer. And actually, I guess it was supposed to be a unique type of fabrication process. And as you can see here, many people had commented on it, including us. One is that it was able to print 3D electronics or 3D circuit boards on a 3D back plane. And then here are some of the materials. And then one of the things that many people had commented on is that there really wasn't any video of the actual product in use. And I have to kind of agree with that. As you can see here, a lot of 3D animated sequences. And as you can see there, that looked more like an FDM printer. So it was pretty confusing. And obviously a lot of people had thought so as well. You know, as they say, sometimes features are a little bit more, what do you call it? If they're too good to be true, then obviously they must be. So let's kind of go back to that article for 3ders.org. So one of the things that, if I remember reading this correctly, is that somebody noticed that the particular objects appeared similar to some of those on Shapeways. More importantly, it may or may not have been this one, but here we go. Let's see. Here they're fabricating the egg, but the egg itself was full color. But somebody out at Facebook who actually created the egg noticed that it looked very similar, and they also noticed that somebody from this particular company had actually purchased it. And so this is where the issues lie. And then this is the reason for the suspension. As you can see behind me, misrepresentation of support through self-pledging, misrepresentation of failure to disclose relevant facts about the project or its creators. The creators presenting someone else's work as their own, offering purchased items, claiming to have them. So this was obviously a real issue, and one of the reasons for the Kickstarter suspension. Now, remember, Kickstarter, when it first came out several years back, did not have these rules in place, and there were other companies, and I'm going to bring them up in a moment. For those of you who have followed me for some time, one of the things that I have covered on a number of shows is the STEM system from Sixense, who, let's go back and see if we can actually find the date. This thing was launched, if I remember correctly, back in August of 2013 with an estimated delivery of July 2014. Now, little simple math here. We're looking at now close to February of 2017. And as you can see, we have not come anywhere close to this. The Kickstarter closed on October 12th, which was my birthday. And if you're one of these people who back them, and in my case, not only did I back them, but I bought extra controllers. So I have about $600 invested in them. This product does not exist. They have modified or changed the parameters several times. As you know, not only do we have the HTC Vive and their hand controllers, we also have now the Oculus Rift CV and their hand controllers, which I own both now, prior to this. And you know, the thing that made this so intriguing when it first came out is this was also based upon, or the technology was also involved in another product called the Hydra, which was marketed and I guess you could buy it or purchase it through Hydra, but the company behind it, excuse me, was Sixense. The key thing about that particular version is that it was tethered and the controllers were tethered. This was supposedly completely remote. So it was intriguing because you didn't need line of sight. So this unit sat in front of you, but because it used a magnetic, what do you want to call it? Deviation of field, it was able to determine these controllers in 3D space. That's how it worked. They had many demos of, I guess, a prototype. Here's another example of it. But the sad thing is, it never materialized as an actual product. So with that being the case, obviously that creates a lot of issues. Let's see, hang on a second. There we go. So that creates a lot of issues because, one, the product's not available, and two, it has been over 3 years now. And here's another video. So obviously they've done a lot to promote this product. In fact, I have complained that they spent more money on the promotion trying to acquire more money to push this out than the actual engineering and design of the product. But where am I going with this? Because of when this came out, in fact, I had the CEO of this particular product on my show, and he pretty much indicated, as well as his marketing representative, Stephen, that they did not fall under the same rules that apply today. So essentially, they're not held responsible for actually providing a product. In fact, he made the comment that you're actually investing in their product and their technology. Well, the sad thing is, many people think of Kickstarter as you pledge and you receive something, and that has not been the case. In fact, I don't even think I've gotten a T-shirt or anything else that they said that would be available if you made a pledge. So I have never gotten anything from this company. So it's very sad. If we go out to the comments, you can see that basically. Okay, so here we go. Antonio Bowman, I have no idea. Hello, Mike Balzer, because I had written to Amir that any news on the invite to film the production, all we got is some plastic updates. So back in, if you remember, if you've listened to my show, back in October, they said they'd invite me down to San Diego to watch the assembly of the product. They don't even have a plastic housing yet. And then they haven't even created the PC boards and the component production. So as you can see, if you read through this, basically everybody wants their money back. And everybody is complaining. In fact, one person said that he's pushed forward to actually sue them, and then he's giving them the option of either just providing a refund or going to court and not only being compensated for the money put forward, but also the interest and so forth, legal fees. I don't know if this person moved forward. I know that I found that it would be fairly expensive to sue them, to create a class action suit, and also very time intensive. And as you can see here, please refund. So I'm a little curious why I seem to be the only one that is really, pushing them to move forward and doing the right thing. If they're not going to come out with a product, and then they were talking about a mobile product, then I think they should provide refunds. The sad thing is, I don't think they have any money anymore. I think they've been trying to find further investment. So it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme, and it's really kind of failed. And I do hope somebody besides myself can move forward with this. Maybe I will find out if there are people at the Portland user group who have invested in it, and maybe we can get together and do something about this. But it's completely ridiculous. So, again, that's my rant. I just think it's interesting. A company like the Next Dynamics Next D1 has been suspended because basically creating false information and not really having a product. And somebody like the STEM system is still out there and actually not only received over $600,000, but also close to that for pre-sales. So literally, they've acquired $1 million and still have not even a production prototype to show off. So as you can imagine, pretty angry with that, and I will stay up to date on that, and we'll go forward with it at a later time. All right, so let's move on to the next item. Let's see where we're at. I think we've covered this a little bit before, or it's been a similar product, but essentially T3D is trying to create a SLA type product that works with your smartphone. We've kind of talked about before. Let's see, what was one of the big reasons? Yeah, they don't actually show. So here's I guess, a prototype of it. Here's the bed, and then there's the phone below it. We on the show, when we saw this earlier, is how were they able to use a standard phone in order to process it? I think we kind of came to the conclusion that the print times would be extremely slow, or the resins themselves, the photopolymers, are set in such a manner that they're extremely sensitive to light. Here they're showing it being actually printed. And let me run the little video. So yes, it does appear to be the actual, in the equivalent of a DLP projector. It is the similar. There's your bed of resin that sits above it. So let's kind of take a look at it. Now, obviously, that is a time lapse that's increased or decreased the amount of time. I highly doubt that it was that fast. Also, they use a lattice design, which is easier to create through an SLA printer because of the open frame. So I wonder how it would work with a closed object, and then obviously the quality. But it's kind of cool if it does work, and we'll have to see about getting them on the show. Here's the Twisted Rook that's also put out by, who gave me one of these? B3 or B9 Creator actually printed something like that as well, which, if you remember, is also a DLP 3D SLA printer. So visible lightweight 400 to 700. So it really depends upon the actual SLA light sensitive material in order for this thing to function. I would be very surprised how well this works in the real world. Seems like an interesting concept, but I don't think it would be very fast. And obviously the actual bed size would be very limited. They're looking at possibly $200 when they actually come out with it. But of course, you still need to provide a smartphone. Not saying that it's not available. And I don't know if they identified if they'll have software for both the Android and iOS platforms. But it's a cool little device. It shouldn't be that expensive, and I look forward to following a little bit more later on. All right, well, let's go back into our next item. Even though we're actually not in VR, but for 3D in medicine, I thought this was very interesting. And here we have the Oculus Rift CV, but they're using this with a simulator, as you can see there below, a laparoscopic type simulator, so they can actually perform surgery. And I don't know if this is the same image or if that's just composited, but essentially this individual would be able to replicate being in an operating room and doing a laparoscopic surgery. I'm assuming that she probably can see the screen that's shown in the operating room while she's performing the laparoscopic surgery. Let's see, I think I actually have this video to play. Where is it at? Okay, so let's take a look at it. Well, it seems like a fairly immersive experience. However, I think the standard simulator is just a screen, so I'm I'm a little curious what the VR approach would provide. In fact, I don't even know where the actual surgeon is in the performing this. But obviously, it seems to be a very cool application, and actually using other hand controllers, in this case, laparoscopic simulation device, in order to provide the ability to feel more immersive as though you're in the operating room. I did find it interesting that some of the objects in here are the same ones that I used in my Unity operating room that I made for the Occipital as well as for Android, that allowed you to actually walk around in an OR room. So I did notice that some of the assets in there look very similar. But it would make sense. They're already available. I did notice some custom ones, so they probably recreated or found somebody, or maybe even that person to develop the rest of the assets. So wondering if it'll be available for people to play with. I don't know. So we'll look at that in the future. But, you know, I have always felt that using both 3D fabrication and virtual reality or augmented or mixed reality in medicine is going to be extremely important. One of the things that I'm going to be doing a demo here shortly is the ability to use the HTC Vive. In fact, their 3D Labs has a brief demo of a anatomical figure that you can slice with your hand controllers that I thought was very interesting. The resolution of the MRI isn't that good, and the actual organs inside are very basic, but it gives a really nice, we want to call it conceptual view of what can be in store. And obviously, if you've seen the HoloLens demo, the same thing there, to be able to actually see an anatomical figure. It's either muscular display or skeletal display, I think is very important, especially once we are able to do this through a telepresence with people around the world, be able to view the same thing at the same time and the same objects, and be able to manipulate them as though they are there in the room, I think is a very cool concept. And I think that is in my opinion, the killer application for VR. All right, let's move on to the next item. 3D scan. I thought this is kind of neat. If you remember, or if you have not seen it, go see it. Rogue One had a 3D representation of Grand Moff Tarkin. A lot of people thought that the 3D representation was cold, dead eyes, but I don't know if you remember Peter Cushing in the original Star Wars, but I also felt he was a little bit cold and dead-eyed. So I didn't really have an issue with the character, But this little article here says that they used a Faro 3D scanning device. And here obviously was a death mask of Peter Cushing. But another thing that they used, and I can understand why it was using the Next Engine scanner, or maybe they're just showing it here. But I could see that being used because I have used the Next Engine and I've gotten fairly good results with it. But once they've scanned in the mesh information, they can then apply texturing. And as you can see here, you have multiple things that are added to it. There's the actual character, but you have depth information, you have highlights, and geez, can't remember all the things now, but different versions of it that are combined in order to create a lifelike character. And the important thing in creating skin is the ability, and I think the one on the right shows it, is the ability to light literally kind of reflects and is absorbed. So, and because our skin has somewhat of a translucent, what do you want to call it, aspect to it, you can create almost like a glow. And I guess that's where the glow comes from that we refer to. But that is part of creating a more lifelike skin. And we have come a long way in creating characters, but obviously the eyes themselves are still one of the weak points, or at least some people had pointed out. But I thought the character was fairly well done. If I had not known, I probably could have been fooled. But if you look closely in the movie, you would notice that. Now, the other interesting is that I do believe that Carrie Fisher was also created with visual effects. If you remember, it was a younger Carrie Fisher. And I thought that was very interesting. And it seemed a little bit smooth, but for the most part, it seemed very interactive. And obviously, we're going to see even more things with the next Avatar, which, if you remember, kind of brought the animated capability to the face with multiple points of expression that create a more lifelike experience. So we're seeing more and more of this. Obviously, gaming, you'll see that experience as well, because as the technology used in movies translates over to gaming, we're going to see more and more lifelike characters, as well as the technology allows us to reproduce that in real time. And we're already seeing that. There are tons of games that provide fairly realistic characters now. Okay, let's jump back, even though we covered it a little bit earlier. Our opening video was for the making of Pearl, which just won or received an Oscar nomination for animated short. But remember, if you have not seen it, Pearl is a VR experience. And yeah, they don't actually have it here. Here we go. So, yeah. Interesting. I thought this would be in 360, but it does not appear to be. But this whole thing was shot in a 360 stereoscopic view, and you truly felt like you were in the vehicle. Supposedly there's an HTC Vive version that allows you to actually stick your head through the sunroof and actually move around a little bit to give you even more of a lifelike experience of actually being in the car. But it was very immersive. I thought it was very catchy and touching, and let's hope that it actually receives a nomination, and the actually did receive a nomination, receives an award for it. Be very cool. All right, let's move on to the next item. Speaking of VR, I don't know if anybody has signed up for this. I haven't done anything with it, but I thought I'd at least give you a sneak preview if you haven't. Sansa is the, you want to call it, second life for VR, and not only is it a VR experience, which we can show here shortly in on a standard screen, but it also has a better graphics engine. And I played with it a little bit before we started the show, but let's see if I can open up the client and actually, oops, there we go. So let me add my email address. So you download a Windows client. I don't know if it's still in beta. I was able to become part of their beta application, and I'm hoping to actually do some architectural design and place it in there for other people to look at. But if you're familiar with Second Life, you can create a second avatar. I guess that's my avatar there. Now this again is the single view version. As you can see, I'm a third person. I can use my WASD keys to walk around. But if I had this, let's say an HTC Vive or the Oculus, I would be able to be immersed from a VR perspective. But as you can see, the graphics are fairly good. There we go. If you remember the old days of Second Life, these are obviously a huge improvement over that previous version. Seems fairly responsive. I don't know how well that's interacting with the show video, but cool thing is that not only can you create 3D worlds, and as you can see, there's also physics, improve things. I appear to be the only one in this, but I can go to other experiences. Let's try this one. But this is not just a single person experience like Second Life. You can actually join others in it, and that's the intriguing thing, especially from, let's say, a professional perspective. You're showing off a home or an architectural design, and you want to bring in clients. They could don their headset and actually join you within the environment and be able to walk around and take notes and make changes if needed. The, the quality of the graphics are decent. Here we go. Shadows are dynamic shadows there. So I don't know if I've got any audio with this since I've turned it off because I was getting echo. Let's see, I'll turn it back on. And yeah. Okay, so if I get some echo, I'll stop it. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I'm able to actually play the video. I'll have to work on that later. Well, it is pretty cool. There is audio. There was some birds chirping, and then you could hear his footsteps. So next week, when I have my system set up, I will try that and see how that will work out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So let's kind of move into my own items now. That's about the items for today's news and item spotlights, but let's take a look at, well, I don't know if I'll be able to actually run the camera, but we'll see what will happen. But I've got a little product here called Insta360. So let me change my camera back to myself. I don't know if you've seen this. This is a camera that attaches to an iOS device. So if you've got an iPhone 6, 6S, 7, or a 7S, this attaches to the Lightning port, which I'll pop on. And I'm pretty sure that I've already installed the software on this, or maybe it was my other phone. Okay, and I have a, let me go ahead and mirror this again. There we go. Let's add myself to it. Okay, so essentially this is the screen to the iPhone 6 here that just dropped out on me. So I was playing with this last week, and there's a few videos, and you can see a list of the videos that I had actually used. But we should be able to actually use the camera itself. So there you go. This is my new tech closet. The new house we had had this very interesting room in the back that has, obviously, as you can see there, storage, as well as the ability for me to have enough space to set up a desk and my VR system here, as well as my production. The sad thing is I can't find anything. This is one of the reasons I was delayed today. I couldn't even find the device so that I could play this. One thing, if you're not familiar with either the Apple TV or any of the Chromecast devices, they use HDCP, and unless you get an HDMI splitter that removes the HDCP, I can't run it into my production mixer. So I had to find that today, and then I don't even have my standard lights, which I'll have to find as well. And as you can see behind me is basically green cloth, which I'm going to paint a couple panels and slide them back out when I'm actually doing the production. But other than that, it's nice and cozy. I'm assuming that my sound is pretty good. Let me know if it's not. I guess I'll find out later on. It's a sad thing when you don't have somebody like Chris. Speaking of Chris is still out. I think we may have mentioned it. Chris's father had a stroke last year, or maybe even 2 years, and he's down in Florida now. I think they're doing some physical therapy there. I guess they've got an excellent physical therapist or hospital to do that. And so I think he's down there again for that reason. Really hats off for Chris and the amount of time that he has spent with his father to help him out and recover. And so one of the reasons why Chris hasn't been on our show that often. Okay, well, it just timed out, which I thought was kind of interesting. So that gives you an idea of the actual unit here. Let me jump back to it. So it's fairly nice. It just kind of clips onto the back of this. What I have gotten as well is a bracket so that the phone can be attached and then supported on a tripod. So what I'm hoping is that I'll be able to use this next week once I get everything set up. But the cool thing about it, other than it provides full 360 camera functionality that you can record or take photos. Geez, it just, well, that's interesting. It just froze on me. Oh, there we go. But the thing that I like about it, there we go, is that it also has the ability of doing real-time streaming. And I wanted to set it up so that I could use it at the Portland Women's March last week. However, it was the weather was too inclement. Obviously too much rain. It was cold, so I didn't want to chance ruining the device. Plus, I didn't know how good my cellular service would be out there, so I'll wait till next week and we'll do a live version out in our little garden. But the thing is that you can send this directly to YouTube Live, which now does equirectangular 360s, and be able to actually do this live. And I think this is one of the few devices in this price range, and this is about $250 that allows you to do that. Again, you need an iPhone. It does not work with Android, but again, it works from either the 6, 6S, 7, 7S. I'm not sorry, there isn't a 7S, yes, and also the Plus versions. I'm going to try to see how this would work with the iPod Touch, if it is compatible with it. Obviously, it's a low-cost unit, and which would bring this thing in about a $500 price range, so I'll try that. So it's a really cool, neat little device. There's the screen. So I don't know, I think it's a kind of a neat, impressive little device. Okay, so let's move on to the next item. So as mentioned, I was hoping to give a little demonstration of the bridge. We kind of ran out of time, but I can at least show it. The bridge is Occipital's headset that works specific. Geez, maybe the space is too confining, but it works specifically with the iPhone 6. And I did download a demo, but I haven't calibrated yet. But it's called Bridgey, if I remember correctly. But let's see how we can do this. There we go. So essentially, this is it. It's a very nice little unit. At first glance, if you hold it, it seems a little heavy, but the reason for that is one, we have the sensor attached to the front, and two, you have a counterweight on the back. And the whole purpose of this is to balance it so that it doesn't feel, what do you want to call it, front face heavy, which I have noticed with some heavier phones to be a problem. So this was kind of a very cool and intriguing idea from Occipital to create a counterweight. They also went with a very nice ratcheting system to tighten it, and I'll actually try it here. So put it on my head, and essentially you just ratchet it until it fits comfortably and tight, and there you go. Now currently this particular version only works with the iPhone 6S, I'm sorry, 6S, and let me see if I can bring it up. The 6S, don't have enough hands. All right, so let's bring it up. Let's see if I can. All right, so it's asking me, so let's see if I can do this. Let's mirror it. All right. So this is, let me jump to the screen. So this is what you see. It says, yes, I have a bridge headset. So I'm going to go ahead and put it inside. And I found that it's really nice. It just kind of snaps right in. And I'll jump back to my screen. Just kind of snaps right in, so it's very easy. It has a very nice smooth hinge and then a magnetic system to lock it in place. But I can also connect the sensor, which I'll do right now. Okay, so it should be up and running. Well, let me jump back to the screen. Right now it's stuck on this. Okay, we'll skip that. No, we're not going to do that. So essentially you go through a calibration process, which we can calibrate now, but you need the calibrator app, and then you have to download a calibrator square in order to calibrate the wide angle lens here. And we'll kind of skip that right now. But essentially, jump back to it. Once you have it all set up, you can then put it on your head. You scan the environment that you're in, and what I'll do is I'll take a video later on with the demo that I've created. And it creates a rock steady inside out system that you can walk around in a domain. Now, keep in mind, unlike the version that I have tested in the past, it uses the reason it's rock steady is one, the wide angle lens, and two, it maps out the current room, actually literally using the sensor as a 3D scanner and using that three-dimensional information to provide cues for positional tracking. So it is basically, as I said, rock steady because it knows where it's at. Now, obviously, as you go outside those boundaries, it will let you know or create some instability. But you can literally map your entire room and then just basically stand in the middle of it and walk around. And I plan to have an actual version by the next show that shows that. Now, keep in mind, because it's only compatible with the iPhone 6 and not the 6 Plus or the 7 Plus, it's limited to basically a 720p screen. And that could be a problem if you're used to the resolution in some of the newer, either the Daydream or the Google Cardboard with some of the higher resolution phones. But it is the only device currently that does inside out tracking. I do know that there is a new device coming out from Asus called the Zenfone VR, or is it AR? Excuse me, that does allow mixed reality using the Tango project sensors. Hopefully I'll have a version of that in to try that out. But there you go. However, if you do want to go with a plus version, as you know, I have been working on the NeoDVR Uplay Stealth, which is this unit here. This is the first production prototype. Like the Occipital bridge, it supports the sensor as well as the wide angle lens, but it uses a different design instead of a strap-on where, like other VR designs, it rests on your head like the Sony system. And so I've created a kind of a semi-rigid headband with an elastic band in the back with two Actually, there are 4 of them, and you can adjust them based upon the circumference of your head. And in my case, I have those on the last, what do you want to call it, hooks here, but you can bring them in. And then in the back, I don't know if you can see it here, I also have a location for a battery. So you can run your iPhone device for extended period of times. I've ordered from Occipital their new version that allows you to simultaneously charge or actually run it through AC, the iPad or iPhone and the sensor to constantly keep them charged. But what I'm planning to do is convert that cable so that I can run that off a battery for extended use. The actual Stealth unit is about 10 ounces less than the whole bridge system, mainly because I use an exoskeleton system, as you can see there. So it's kind of like, I call it my special forces. So it's very lightweight. It essentially surrounds the phone with an exoskeleton, provides the support, as we talked about in the last show, with a GoPro type connecting system. So if you don't want this headband, you wanted to create a helmet system, you could do that. The actual lens box is held together with kind of a hinge and magnets so that you have access to the screen. In this case, I had a little demo running. And then you just set it up, clip it back on like that, line it up, and then the magnetic latch or magnets at top hold it in place, and then you just place it on your head. So it uses 45 millimeter lenses with a 35 millimeter focal length. So literally the actual lens boxes are about the shortest distance you can get. It's extremely immersive. I am going to be getting lenses that have a small cutout so that it fits better around the nose. But it's coming along nicely. And as mentioned, I hope to have that for pre-sale by March, with probably delivery in April or May. Yeah, it's been my go-to device. Really like it. Again, it supports only the iPhone 7 Plus. I do plan to make a version for the iPhone 6s Plus, but currently that is not available. So the other thing that I have to show, and actually I'll just hold off on it, is I just received the new Shield TV, and we've talked about it before. The new Shield TV is kind of cool. Maybe I can hold it up. Yeah, enough room. This is it. It's tiny. It's about half the size of the previous version, and it does support 4K. I hooked it up to my 4K computer monitor, and it works fine at 60 frames per second. So it's a nice little device. I think it's probably one of the better devices loaded directly, since it's basically an Android TV device. There are several, what do you want to call it, video content providers. What comes on it by default is Amazon, Netflix, YouTube. Obviously, you're probably not going to find any Apple stuff on it. You don't on any of these type of devices. Hulu. So pretty much anything Android based, you'll be able to work on it. If it's not in their store, because you have to do a few things in the manifest in order for it to work with Android TV, you can side load. I've done this in my own development, and yeah, it's really nice. It's $200. The only caveat versus the previous version, the 16 gig version that this one also has, is somewhat limited. And the previous version had an SD card or micro SD slot, which allowed you to expand that. This one removed that and I've already opened it up. I'll have images later on that show what it looks like internally. So look for that either in my Facebook or my Twitter account. But it's a very compact board. They did redesign it and pretty much left it out. But I did notice that there was a SMD pads for a USB micro port that was not connected, as well as it looks like a universal, could be some type of port to allow maybe internal SATA, or even maybe a PCIe, or just a custom connector. Again, it's not, there is no connector there, it's just the pads, but it would be interesting to find out what they were planning there. It did look like the plastic inside did house the ability to maybe have some internal storage. So that would be kind of cool to have something like this at a later date with that kind of storage. I do know that the what they call their Pro version is the same size as the previous unit, so I don't think that has changed, which only had a 2.5. In fact, if I remember, it was a mechanical hard drive, so it wasn't even a standard solid state device. So if that's where they're going with this, cool. However, all is not lost. You do have the ability to hook external peripherals. You have two USB 3 ports, and many people are just hooking up USB 3 USB devices to it for extra storage. And with the Android Nougat that comes with this, you were able to, in fact, you could do it with the previous version that they updated to, but you could create external storage so that it maps it as such, so that all applications and data images get stored to that as though it were just an extension of the Android OS. So there you go. Very cool little device. And I have some ideas for this, so stay tuned. Okay. I think that's about it. Let me check my log. Let's see. Oh, so next week we're going to look at the Asus ROG. It is, I got the version, I got a used version on Amazon that included the GTX 1070 as well as an i7, but it's a laptop. Got it for about $1150. One of the reasons for it is that it was almost a week late because of the snowstorm here, but they took off another $150 when I complained that it took 2 weeks for it to get here. So I got it for $1150. So that's a pretty good deal. But you can get it, like I said, the used versions, and there are several out there. And I've had good luck with Amazon used for about $1,300. And if you priced out creating an actual desktop unit, you'll find that it actually would cost even more for the same components. I have found that, at least in my research, that the 1070 NVIDIA GTX that's in it is the same chips that are used in your desktop. I don't think there were any difference. So if you get a mobile version, you're not going to see any differences between performance. I do think is underclocked a little bit. Same thing with the i7. I don't think there was a mobile version of the i7 that's used in the 6th generation. So again, I think it's just underclocked. So it runs a little slower, but it's the same chipset as a desktop version. And my experience over the last few days is that it's a pretty good little device. Nice screen. It was on the version I got, only had a 1080p screen, but I've got bad eyes anyway, so anything above that would be wasted on me in the small 15.6-inch screen. I would like to see either the MSI or the Gigabyte device or laptops, the 14-inch, because one, it'd be more portable, and more importantly, you could create a bracket system for it and use it like a backpack. I do know they have some devices coming out, but I think they're going to be something like $2,000. The Gigabyte you can buy for about $1,500. The MSI I've seen around $1,300. Obviously, that's either 8 gigs, 16 gigs at most of RAM. The ROG actually comes with 16, but you can populate the empty slot with another 16 gig for 32, which I plan to do. It only came with a 256 PCIe solid state, but you can add an external drive. I plan to use a hybrid drive in it to provide even more storage for it. But the same thing holds true with the Gigabyte. Actually, take that back. With the new Gigabyte, with the GTX 1060 in it, the 14-inch does not allow for dual storage systems. So if you're going to buy one, make sure you get a large enough drive. They do provide the PCIe just like the ROG, so you can get very good performance. It is a 6th generation chip as well. So if you're interested in a laptop for VR, I can tell you definitely that the ROG, which I guess is Republic of Gamer, 15.6-inch version, I'll have a number in the show notes, is a winner, and it's low cost. And if you don't mind having it be about the size of a regular laptop, it's not too bad. It's not super thin. It's not super heavy. It's not the lightest version. Obviously, you can spend a little bit more money, like a lot more money, to buy the Razer ultra thin version that they have out, but you're going to spend $2,000 to $2,500 for that. So if you need something low cost that works well, you can't go wrong with the Asus ROG 15.6. I do think they have a 17-inch version as well. Okay, well, that's about it. I will wait till next week when Chris, I hope, does come back, because I want to hear about this mysterious metal SLS printer that he keeps talking about. So we'll wait till then. And I will refine my system a little bit more, as I call it, the tech closet, and get back with you guys. But hey, thanks for joining me, and I look forward to coming back next week with some more fun stuff. And like I said, I'm going to be I should have my HTC 5 VR cave set up. I do have 2 units now, so we'll see how that works out. I do plan to show a more elaborate version of the bridge example, again, which uses inside-out rock steady tracking. So I'll be able to show that not only on the bridge headset, which we showed a little bit earlier, but also with my own NeoDVR Uplay Stealth unit, which works with the Plus 7 phone that I'm a little partial to for some reason. On that note, I've talked enough. See ya, and join us next week. Hopefully I can start on time, which will be our new time at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Friday. And again, I apologize for the erratic time, but until I'm fully set up, I can't offer any more than that. All right, bye.